Damn, you made the A-list?
A-list.
Hey there, my name is Josh, and we have Chef Lynch right here, as well as Drew.
This is episode 2. Look, y'all, we on Midway and Beltline at Elite Cigars, Addison, Texas. If you're ever in town or you come to Dallas, Texas, please come to Addison to check out Elite Cigars with my main man, Drew, who's about to explain the proper way to cut a cigar.
All right. I have been looking forward to getting into a cigar since we started this thing.
Yes.
We've already recorded episode 1. We're now into episode 2. I'm ready for a cigar. You guys?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
So there are multiple ways that you can cut a cigar. And we're going to talk about the 3 main ways that you can cut a cigar. You can cut and smoke a cigar however you want to, because at the end of the day, it's your cigar.
Okay.
But if you want to maximize your enjoyment, this is kind of how I recommend doing it in these 3 different fashions. So some people prefer... Yes, sir. You have a question?
Let me ask you something, Drew.
Yeah.
When it comes to cutting a cigar,
Yeah.
why do you prefer these ways? Is there something that is preventing?
So I actually don't prefer all these ways.
So what's your way that you prefer?
For the most part, I prefer a straight cut or a guillotine cut. You can get a little bit more precise with the cut because before we get into the actual cutting of the cigar, let's talk about the construction of the cigar for a second.
Let's talk about that, yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be it may be hard to see. Even with a close-up camera, it might be hard to see, but there's essentially a cap on top of this cigar, and there's a cap, and there, you can kind of see 2 lines. There's one up top, and then one kind of maybe a millimeter further down. You can kind of see that, right?
Yes, I can.
So that top one is called the cap, and then that second one is called the shoulder.
Okay.
Ideally, you want to cut, if you're doing a straight cut, in between those 2 lines.
Got it.
The reason being is that cap is the only thing holding that cigar together. So if you cut that off, it'll just unravel. And we actually have a couple of very inexpensive cigars
So let's dive into that.
that
then,
we can
Drew.
actually, let's go ahead and see what happens. Because I did it when I first got a cigar. I was like, oh, I've seen it in the movies. You just lob a big chunk
Light
off,
and
right?
go.
Right.
People, I want you to understand that this is not how you always do it. Some people, like me, are professional. I just went straight in, okay? I'm from the west side of Detroit. This is how we get down.
So-
we know what we're doing.
I'm just gonna take this cigar. It's got the same construction, but it's a cheap cigar, and I'm just gonna cut that off, right? Now look, already you can see that cigar is starting to unravel. I haven't even touched it after
Right.
I cut it, right? It's
Right.
just starting to unravel.
Now, is that because of Drew? The wrapping of it? Is it not a good wrapper? Is it because...
Well, don't be mistaken. This is not a high quality cigar. The tobacco in this is not high quality. But I cut off the cap, and the one thing that's actually holding the cigar together. So this cigar I've just completely ruined instantly by not actually knowing what I'm doing and just lobbing a big chunk of it off.
And on this one right here, you can tell that the cap itself is actually really small.
Yeah.
Really hard to find.
Right.
So, yeah. And I'm sure you're going to cover maybe what would be ideal on smaller cigars versus a bigger cigar or something like that.
Yeah, so ideally, you're essentially just trying to cut off enough to allow airflow, right? That's all you're trying to do
Right.
without allowing the cigar to unravel.
Or,
right?
or falling apart.
Falling apart.
Looks like
right?
one of your steaks.
My steak don't look like that. I'm going to let you know right now, Dallas, Texas. If we get a steak like that, the health department coming, okay? That's all I'm going to say right there. Health department is coming.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is a punch. I know that you sometimes smoke a punch.
Yes, I do.
And so I'm gonna go ahead and punch this cigar. I'm not a big fan of punches, and the reason is there's a little risk in damaging the cigar just because of the pressure you have to put on it in order to properly cut it. Now, a higher end punch, something like this, as opposed to an inexpensive punch, is going to be sharper. It's going to give you a little bit more precision,
Mm-hmm.
but even with an inexpensive punch, you're gonna run some risk of damaging the cigar. Not in a way like this, where it's gonna be practically unsmokable.
Right.
But it's just not gonna be ideal, right? But we'll go ahead and show how to do that. So I'm just going to place that tip right in the center. I'm going to lightly apply some pressure. I'm just going to start twisting. And I tried just not to get in a hurry with it. If you ever get in a hurry with a cigar, you're just asking for trouble. And this is something that somebody put a lot of time and passion and love and effort to. And so if you show the respect to the cigar, it'll give it back to you.
But see, that's why sometimes when I punch mine, I will actually lick the top to make it wet.
Yeah.
To change the cut. So when I pull back on it, Drew, it's a very smooth, and I do not do a lot of damage to the cigar.
Yep.
I know y'all probably can't see it, but I'm gonna still hold it up.
But that actually brings up a good point. You can lick the cigar in order to help prevent some damage to the cigar. But if you're using somebody else's cutting implements, you shouldn't lick the cigar.
That's why you have your own cigar case and your own cigar box.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
If you're gonna moisten the tip, then you should definitely use your own cutting implements to keep the COVID out, y'all.
Right. There you
Okay.
go. All right.
So next up,
yes.
I'm gonna cut Josh's cigar.
There you go.
This is we talked about this cigar a little bit in the last episode. It's one of my favorite cigars, the Block by Dissident. And it's a box pressed cigar, which means it's kind of square instead of the normal round cigar shape that you might see. So it's actually called a box press because it kind of looks like a box. And I do like what's called a V-cut on box press cigars. A V-cut will actually allow you a little bit more surface area, especially with a box press cigar, to just give more volume to your smoking experience.
So, Drew, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
With a box press cigar and you're about to do a V-cut,
Yes.
is there any difference from a traditional cigar, from the way you pull and the flavor that you can get, since that is a box press cigar?
Sure. So with the box press cigar, in order to get the box shape, they actually put the cigars in a mold, and it's a box shaped mold.
Okay.
And then they apply pressure to that mold, and it creates that shape. Now, in order to get the box pressed, then they actually have to roll the cigar just slightly looser than you would a normal Parejo round shaped cigar. And what that does is it actually allows more airflow through the cigar, and you typically get a higher smoke volume with a box press cigar as opposed to your traditional round Parejo design.
Nice.
See all the knowledge that we're giving you from Elite Cigar in Addison, Texas. Please come down and talk to Drew.
So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. And the nice thing about this is you almost don't have to think about it. Just stick it and line it up, stick it in, and cut it. But just like with anything else, you might have seen a little damage to that,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And that's just one of the risks you're going to run whenever you do a box press
Now,
or
with-
a V-cut or but it's not as severe as, lobbing the whole thing off.
Well, very, very true. Now, so let me ask you a question, Drew.
Yes, sir.
With the same effect of the punch, like he was mentioning there, if he was kind of moist just the top here,
Yes.
can you do that with this as well? With the
Yes, you
V-cut?
can. Absolutely.
And you still that would kind of help prevent some of the breaking on the tip. there?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can just moisten the tip a little
Right,
bit.
right.
These are all my cutting tools, so that's why I'm not having these guys make this stuff beforehand. But I use this is actually one of my preferred cutting methods. I really like scissors a lot, just because I can actually see. So
Now, before you do that, I also wanted to share too, from my understanding,
Sure.
and help me understand this as well. Some of the bigger cigars, you can still do a V cut, but you can also do what they call a crown cut.
yes, yeah, and I could actually technically do a crown cut on that as well.
Mhm.
It's really just making a cross with the V cut. I haven't noticed a big difference whenever you do that. It's
Right.
more of a personal preference thing, right? It's your
Right.
cigar. You do what you want to with it.
So now let me ask you this, Drew.
Sure.
With this crown cut that you're talking about,
Yeah.
because that is a smaller cigar,
Yeah.
will they have to worry about the tobacco once they actually light the cigar falling back in their mouth? Because that's a bigger cut than a punch that we have
Well,
on here.
that's always going to happen no matter what cut you have. Like there's always maybe going to be a little bit of tobacco from the trauma, let's say, of
Okay.
lobbing off the head of a cigar.
Right, sure.
There's always maybe going to be a little bit of tobacco in there, but it's nothing to worry about really.
Nice.
Elite Cigars, Addison, Texas.
Thank you, man. All right, so now I'm going to use scissors. So scissors is just one form of straight cut. You know, we've got another nice straight cutter here, right? But the principle for straight cuts is always the same, and you can have a little bit more precision, and you can mitigate the risk of damaging any of your cigars with a straight cut in this way. So what I like to do is find the spot where I'm going to try to cut the cigar off, and you can see it's just not very much.
It's not much at all. And again, what you're looking for, there is a line that's going through. Hopefully you can see it. If not, there's two lines like what Drew was talking about. And he's trying to get right there in the middle of the two lines.
Yeah, so, and you can see I don't have so much pressure that I'm actually cutting the cigar right now.
Right.
But it's firm enough that I can hold it. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn this about 1/4 of an inch, and the blades will actually start to cut into the tobacco. You can kind of see where that's cutting in, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So once I got that little 1/4 inch turn, now cut it off.
Nice. Nice. Now you got a nice flat.
Nice flat, even cut, and everything's all good, right?
And if you notice, when he rotated and cut the cigar, no damage, nothing fell out. You don't have to worry about the tobacco.
Stuff like
Even though he said it will be a little bit of pull sometimes, but if you're cutting it right and it's your first time doing something like this, smoking a cigar, whether it's light or dark, pay attention to detail. Elite Cigars. Addison, Texas.
Okay, so now we talked about real quick the cuts.
Yep.
But I would like to ask a couple quick questions. We've
Sure.
got a few cigars that are hidden back here.
Hang on though.
Yep, go right ahead.
I'm ready to smoke this thing.
Let's light up.
Can we light these cigars first?
We're gonna light these up. We're gonna enjoy our cigars for a moment, and then we're gonna dive into the different types of cigars. We're gonna dive into the lower end, the higher end, and then the medium. All right. So let's go ahead and light these things up.
Okay, so actually, I'm going to use matches for this one, just because I like to be a little hoity-toity.
See, I like to torch.
Yeah.
A lot of people complain about my cigar, Drew, because when I light mine, like y'all about to see, I like the fire to come, baby.
Well,
I'm mainly in the kitchen, so I got to get with it.
This is a $40 cigar, so I want to treat it with the respect it deserves, right? We've
Right.
got some premium, like, aged tobacco in this,
Yes.
and whenever you get a torch, yes, you can light the cigar faster. Yes, it's more efficient, and with a lot of more inexpensive cigars, you can do that. But I'm going to show you the classy way.
While Drew is showing y'all the classy way, I would like to tell one thing. Buy a cigar that fits your personality.
For sure.
I smoke what fits my personality with the people I associate with, whether it's business, on a day-to-day basis, or I'm sitting down just having fun, kicking it with the fellas. We betting on sports or playing poker or playing dominoes. As Drew liked this cigar, you see as he's taking his time, he's lighting it. It's giving it flavor. It's opening up. And boy, when we hit these cigars, it's going to be something else.
And see, exactly what you're saying. I'm the same way. However, mine's going to be more of a mild flavor. And again, we'll get into that in just a minute on the different type of flavors and how to be able to experience that. But you can see right here with Drew, as he's burning it, he's not burning it just to burn it. Like he's making sure that the flame is consistent around, and the tobacco is evenly getting distributed all throughout.
So the first thing you do is called toasting the foot,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you got the head and the foot of the cigar. Put the foot to the flame,
Yep.
right? And we're just lightly toasting it. And once you get kind of a good, even distribution.
And I don't know if you can see that, but you see how it kind of just is red all the way around. That's kind of what you want when you're smoking any kind of cigar, because then you got it evenly distributed throughout.
That's exactly right.
And that's what you get when you come to Drew at Elite Cigars. 20 years experience.
Oh my God. Oh man, you're too much, bro. So, yeah.
I like to take mine and I kind of go a little bit like this. Now my torch is not going to be as high as his, but you see I kind of come just a little bit, and I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but I come just enough just so I can touch just right there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And again, what I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing he's doing there. And then once I have it nicely lit, I'm going to come back
And he's doing it perfect. Whenever you have a torch, a lot of people make the mistake of just thrusting that cigar straight into into that torch flame.
Right.
And what that will do is actually char the tobacco. The reason that you toast the foot is so that you slowly bring that up to temperature, and you're not charring it. It's like throwing a steak on a grill like an industrial cooktop that's just cranked all the way up and been on for the last 15 minutes, and you throw it on there and just leave it there.
So what he's trying to tell y'all is, if you're trying to overcook a steak and you don't want as much flavor in it, that's a totally different episode. We get there. Now, when I like my cigars, like I told you, it fits my personality. I've been chefing over 20 years, so I'm an animal with it.
Now, keep in mind too, a lot of you guys that are brand new and smoking cigars, don't inhale the smoke. The smoke's going to be thicker than a cigarette smoke, correct?
Yeah, there's no filter. And cigars have actually a higher nicotine content typically in them because they've actually been fermented, aged, in order to do that. Now, we actually have 3 very different cigars that we're smoking.
We really do.
Yes, we do.
And you can notice it's not a hard and fast rule,
Right.
but it's a good rule of thumb, we'll say. You can see how light colored my cigar is.
Right.
It's a Connecticut wrapper, and typically Connecticut wrappers are going to be on the milder side of things, and that is true for this cigar. It's definitely a milder cigar. Right? That cigar is very dark. And one of the things that makes that particular cigar interesting is that it's a small ring gauge.
Right.
So when we talk about ring gauge, it's actually
think about like your ring that you would put on your finger. That's what he means when he's saying a ring gauge.
Yeah, it's actually in 60ths of an inch.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's got a 60 ring gauge cigar, that's a 1-inch diameter cigar. Right. So that's something like a 40, a 38, or a 40, something along those lines.
It's got a good flavor too.
And before we move further, while he's talking about ring size, let's throw this in there. If you a man, the best way to get away when your wife getting on your nerves, go to the bar, smoke you a cigar. These women that drive you crazy. Trust me. I done been down this road.
So we actually have 3 very different ring gauge size cigars. He's got a larger ring gauge. You've got a smaller ring gauge. I'm kind of right in the middle.
Right in the middle, yep.
And the ring gauge, the way that actually works within a cigar is the smaller the ring gauge, the more flavor you're actually getting from the wrapper leaf itself.
Right.
One of the things that I said, that cigar was unique is you don't see Maduro, and Maduro is just a color classification. Right. Right. It just means dark. Right. The Maduro wrapper in a small ring gauge is a pretty rare thing, and a lot of that is because the wrapper itself can't handle that level of attention. Whereas my man Chef Lynch over here is smoking a larger ring gauge cigar, and so he's getting more flavor from the filler. The cigar essentially has 3 different levels of construction. So you have the wrapper, you have the binder, you have the filler. The filler can be a mix of different tobacco leaves. We're all smoking long filler cigars. That means that it's just one solid, there may be multiple leaves in there, multiple blends in there, but they're all long and go all the way through the cigar and create channels that you can smoke through it.
Which adds more of the flavor.
Correct.
And allows you to enjoy it a lot longer.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the binder itself actually is the thing that really holds the cigar together.
Right.
And the wrapper leaf is the presentation.
Right.
And the main source of flavor. Believe it or not.
True.
So the wrapper leaf is your primary source. It's the most babied. It has to be perfect and it can't have any holes in it. It just has to be absolutely, epic. And so a lot of the cigar purists of the world prefer small ring gauge cigars because they want that flavor to come from the most babied and precious and taken care of, cigar leaf.
That points out something to you, Drew.
Yep.
I think that depends on the person.
It does. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's totally personal preference. There's everything from like 80 and 90 ring gauge cigars that look like, I won't say what, but
they're large and big.
Yeah, they're large and big. And then you have cigars that are actually thinner and longer than the one you're smoking now. So, and everything in between.
So since we're actually talking about the different sizes and stuff, let me jump in real quick if you're okay with that, since we now have our cigars laid up.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about just a couple of simple cigars, and then again, like Drew just mentioned here, we are smoking, and I use the word simple, but what I'm trying to use words where individuals that have never smoked cigars before.
Yep.
I want you guys to understand what it is what's going on here. So some people say cheaper. Some people would say less quality.
Yeah.
Help them understand from a layman's perspective. When we're talking about the different types of cigars. So I've got a couple here that I pulled for us.
Sure.
I pulled some from next door. I won't even mention the place just because I'm sure you've seen these before. These are called Swisher Sweets.
And also backwoods.
And this is also called backwoods. Okay, so these are your real cheap gas station. You're gonna pick these up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people I have talked to said, oh, these are cigars. Well, these are.
I mean, there's a couple ways to look at it. Technically, do they have cigar tobacco in them? Yes. However, this is a Swisher Sweet. It's machine rolled, whereas all three of the cigars that we're smoking are hand rolled.
Yep.
This is short filler. These are all long filler. So this is just chopped up tobacco, and the reality is that there are factories in Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic where these cigars are made, where this tobacco is literally swept off the floor. Mm. It's the scraps, and just cuttings and stuff like this, from the floor of the tobacco factory, swept into a bin, and then processed and with a lot of chemicals and flavors added to it to make it taste a certain way, and then it's rolled in a tobacco paper, not even a real tobacco leaf, to create this product. So, is it cigar tobacco? Technically, kind of, yeah. But would I consider this a premium cigar? Absolutely not.
So now let me ask you this, Drew. Would you point out the difference in the tobacco and the way it's wrapped?
Yeah.
So by looking at the cigars that we actually have,
sure,
and the ones that are not actual cigars that somebody took their time,
yeah,
and invested in wrapping in an actual cigar leaf,
sure,
what is something that we can educate our viewers on what to look for a good cigar starting off?
Well, first thing you need to do is find a knowledgeable tobacconist, right? Going to a legit cigar shop, finding a knowledgeable tobacconist who's friendly, who has some knowledge, who is willing to walk you through the process. Most cigar shops are like that, honestly. Now, not all of them are this place. This place is a little special. I'm not gonna.
And we really do appreciate that. We're running out of time, but I do want to jump into real quickly. Somebody brand new wanting to come in, never smoked a cigar before, or they've got their friend. What would you recommend them just coming straight to you, and then you ask them a couple questions to get them to where they need to go?
Yeah, when it comes to somebody who's never smoked a cigar, I don't really tend to ask them a whole lot of questions.
Cool.
Because they don't know anything yet.
Right.
So they don't know how to answer what I'm trying to tell them.
Sure.
Somebody who has been smoking for a little bit longer, that's a little bit different story, and we can kind of get into that in the humidor a little bit more.
We'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's on the next episode 3. We're gonna. Oh, I'm so sorry, Chef.
Episode 3, we will be in a humidor. My man's Drew, Elite Cigar, Addison, Texas. Please come stop by off of Midway and Beltline Road. Can't miss it. He's going to dive into different cigars as we walk through the humidor and explain how you will smoke. Also, if you're a beginner cigar smoker, not to put so much on your palate that it pushes you away from smoking a cigar. A-list
Cigar Talks. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Click below to subscribe, and we look forward to talking to you guys later. Have a great day.